February 5th, 2025, 2:47 a.m. Highway 401, Eastern Ontario. Sarah Chen pressed her face against the driver's side window, searching for the road. Nothing, just white. The highway that carried 400,000 vehicles daily had vanished beneath 3 feet of snow in less than 6 hours. Her phone showed no signal. The heating struggled against minus 32 degrees Celsius. She'd stopped moving 20 minutes ago. Outside, the wind screamed at 90 kilometers per hour, sculpting drifts that buried cars like graves. She didn't know 17 people would die. Couldn't know that this storm, time equals 350 milliseconds, born from a collision of Arctic air and moisture from the Great Lakes, would become the deadliest North American winter weather event since the polar vortex of 2014. The blizzard announcement came 36 hours before Sarah Chen's car stopped moving. Environment Canada issued warnings across Ontario, Quebec, and the Maritime provinces on February 3rd. Simultaneously, the National Weather Service activated alerts for New York, Pennsylvania, Vermont, and New Hampshire. The system showed textbook characteristics: low pressure deepening rapidly over the Great Lakes, drawing Arctic air southward while pulling moisture from open water. Meteorologists recognize the signature: cold air, unstable atmosphere, wind shear, the ingredients for a weather bomb. But recognition doesn't prevent reality. The low-pressure system formed over Lake Superior on February 4th at 1400 hours. Within 12 hours, the central pressure dropped 18 millibars, the threshold for what meteorologists term explosive cyclogenesis. As pressure fell, winds accelerated. The counterclockwise circulation drew frigid air from Hudson Bay southward, colliding with relatively warm, moist air over the unfrozen portions of Lakes Ontario and Erie. Physics took over. Warm air rose violently. Moisture condensed into snow at rates exceeding 5 centimeters per hour. Wind gusts reached 110 kilometers per hour across exposed areas, lifting fresh snow and reducing visibility to 0. The blizzard made landfall across the international border at precisely 1800 hours on February 4th. James Kowalski, a meteorologist with Environment Canada's Ontario Storm Prediction Centre, watched the radar signature evolve throughout the afternoon. The snow bands, he would later testify, showed convective structure. We weren't looking at steady snowfall. This was thundersnow, intense bursts embedded in the broader system. That's when you get the rapid accumulation that buries infrastructure. By midnight, Toronto Pearson International Airport recorded 78 centimeters of snow. Buffalo Niagara International Airport, 81 centimeters. Both facilities closed. Highway 401, the Trans-Canada Highway, Interstate 90, Interstate 81, the arteries of cross-border commerce, became parking lots of abandoned vehicles. The first fatality occurred at 21:56 hours on February 4th. Michael Reynolds, 63, suffered cardiac arrest while attempting to shovel his driveway in Mississauga, Ontario. Emergency services received the call at 2203 hours. Time equals 450 milliseconds, / paramedics reached his home at 2341 hours. 98 minutes response time versus the typical 8. The ambulance became stuck 4 times. Reynolds was pronounced dead at 2347 hours. By dawn on February 5th, the death toll stood at 4. 2 elderly residents in Montreal died from hypothermia when power failures disabled heating systems. In Buffalo, New York, a 57-year-old woman died of carbon monoxide poisoning, running a generator inside her garage for warmth. The storm didn't kill through spectacular violence. It killed through accumulation, through cold, through isolation. Sarah Chen, still trapped on Highway 401, made her first 911 call at 0312 hours on February 5th. The dispatcher advised her to stay in the vehicle, run the engine intermittently for heat, keep the exhaust pipe clear of snow, standard procedure. "How long?" Chen asked. The dispatcher couldn't answer. Ontario Provincial Police reported over 2,000 stranded vehicles across their jurisdiction. New York State Police, 1,400. With visibility at 0 and drifts exceeding 2 meters, rescue operations proceeded at walking pace. Power failures cascaded across the affected regions, beginning at 0400 hours on February 5th. Ice accumulation and wind stress snapped transmission lines. Trees, time equals 3 milliseconds greater than heavy with snow and ice, fell across distribution networks. By 0800 hours, 340,000 customers in Ontario had lost power. Another 280,000 across New York and Vermont sat in darkness. Without electricity, heating systems failed. Sump pumps stopped, allowing basements to flood from melting snow. Traffic signals went dark, creating chaos at major intersections when visibility briefly improved. Toronto deployed its entire emergency management apparatus. The city's 1,100 snowplows worked continuously, but accumulation outpaced clearing. Plows became stuck. Operators worked 12-hour shifts without relief. The city requested assistance from Canadian Armed Forces at 1,200 hours on February 5th. Across the border, New York governor declared a state of emergency, activating the National Guard. Buffalo deployed armored personnel carriers, vehicles designed for war, to transport medical personnel and reach stranded motorists. The death toll climbed. 7, 9, 12. Robert Marchetti died at 1347 hours on February 5th. The 71-year-old veteran, trapped in his Amherst, New York home without power, attempted to walk 3 blocks to his daughter's house. Neighbors found him collapsed in a snowdrift 90 minutes later. Time equals 550 milliseconds / core body temperature 28 degrees Celsius, incompatible with life. When infrastructure fails, neighbors become first responders. In the Beaches neighborhood of Toronto, residents organized street by street. Those with working generators shared power through extension cords. Homeowners with gas stoves cooked meals for entire blocks. Young adults physically dug out elderly neighbors, checking on them hourly. David Martinez, 28, spent February 5th shuttling between 3 elderly residents on his street. Mrs. Chen, different Chen, is 86, he explained to reporters afterward, living alone. No power, no heat. I brought her to my place. Then I found out Mr. and Mrs. Osei also had no heat, brought them too. You don't think about it, you just do it. Similar stories emerged across the border region. In Rochester, New York, a network of volunteers coordinated through social media, using snowmobiles and cross-country skis to deliver medication, food, and heating fuel to isolated residents. Emergency rooms reported volunteer medical staff sleeping in hospitals, unable to reach home, but unwilling to leave patients understaffed. The storm created temporary communities of necessity, but necessity couldn't save everyone. The death toll reached 17 on February 6th. The final casualty, Maria Santos, 43, killed when her car was struck by a snowplow on Interstate 90 near Erie, Pennsylvania. Visibility, 15 meters. The plow operator never saw her vehicle, half buried in the median. The blizzard system moved eastward on February 6th, impacting the maritime provinces and New England before dissipating over the Atlantic. Behind it, paralyzed cities, 17 dead, billions in economic losses. Final accumulations defied typical measurements. Toronto, 95 centimeters. Buffalo, 102 centimeters. Montreal, 88 centimeters. Not the deepest snowfall on record, that distinction belonged to earlier storms, but the combination of snow, wind, cold, and speed created unprecedented disruption. Sarah Chen was rescued at 16, 23 hours on February 6th, 40 hours after becoming stranded. She survived with minor frostbite on 3 fingers. I was lucky, she said later. I had a full tank of gas. I stayed awake. I kept moving my fingers and toes. 17 people weren't lucky. Insurance claims exceeded $3.8 billion Canadian, 2.9 billion American dollars. The economic impact, lost productivity, infrastructure repair, emergency response costs reached 4 times that amount. Airports resumed operations on February 8th. Major highways fully reopened on February 9th. Environment Canada and the National Weather Service conducted joint after-action analysis. The forecasting proved accurate. Warnings went out with adequate lead time. The system's behavior matched predictions. The deaths occurred anyway. The February 2025 blizzard wasn't unprecedented. Winter storms killed dozens annually across North America. What distinguished this event was the international scope and the concentrated casualty timeline: 17 deaths across 6 days, distributed across 2 countries, connected by weather, geography, and shared vulnerability. Climate data shows increasing variability in winter weather patterns. The jet stream, driven by temperature differences between the Arctic and mid-latitudes, exhibits greater waviness as Arctic regions warm faster than temperate zones. These exaggerated waves can trap weather systems, allowing them to intensify over longer periods. The blizzard that killed 17 people emerged from atmospheric physics, indifferent to borders, economics, or human preparation. Arctic air met moisture. Pressure fell. Wind accelerated. Snow fell at rates that overwhelmed infrastructure designed for normal winters. We build civilization on the assumption that weather operates within known parameters. We engineer roads for typical snowfall. We design power grids for expected ice loads. We train emergency services for manageable disasters. Then, nature reminds us that parameters are statistical artifacts, not physical limits. The 17 dead represented every category of vulnerability: elderly residents without power, motorists trapped beyond rescue capacity, workers clearing snow who never went home. Time equals 550 milliseconds greater than. Each death resulted from different immediate circumstances, but the same ultimate cause: exposure to conditions that exceeded human tolerance, in a system that exceeded human response capacity. Highway 401 reopened on February 9th. Sarah Chen drove home that afternoon, passing the spot where she'd been stranded. The snow had been ploughed into towering banks. Traffic moved normally. The extraordinary had returned to ordinary. But 17 people remained dead. 17 funerals followed in communities across Ontario, Quebec, New York, Vermont, Pennsylvania, and New Hampshire. 17 absences in families, workplaces, neighborhoods,